Hey, are you a business owner, entrepreneur, or professional? If so, we want you to apply to be a featured guest on our show. My name is Adam Torres, and I host the Mission Matters series of podcasts. I've recorded over 3,000 episodes, and we are just getting started. How do you know if you'd be a good guest to be on the show? Well, only one way to find out, and that's to apply, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We want guests that have a story to tell, guests with a brand, a product, or a service that can benefit my audience of listeners. If this sounds like you, go to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. I'd love to talk to you and get to know more about your story. Again, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. And if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right. So I have Dan Desko on the line. He is founder, CEO, and managing partner at Echelon Risk Cyber. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Adam. It's great to be here.
All right, Dan. So I'm excited to get into Echelon Cyber and also just go over what's going on in cybersecurity in general. I mean, lots of people watch this, business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, experts, and they're looking for tools. They're looking for ideas, especially when it comes to cybersecurity. It's a big deal, big topic. It's at the heart of all of our business. I mean, we're all tech businesses now. That's the way I look at it. But just to get us kicked off, let's start with our signature question I ask all our guests. So, Dan, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. So that's our mission here. Dan, what mission matters to you?
Yeah, I love this question, Adam. And for us, I feel like that's an easy one. You know, for us, cybersecurity is personal. So our mission as a company is we believe security and privacy are basic human rights. And our customers' data, their customers' data, should be protected as basic human rights. And it's our calling. We truly believe it is our calling to protect those rights. A lot of organizations in cyber talk about what they do, but there's very few that I would say that can articulate why they do what we do. So we felt that, we had an opportunity to talk about how we do things differently and how our mission is at the core of really everything we do. We know why we're in this business. We make our mission a human-driven one because at the end of the day, when you take away all the bells, the whistles, the fancy technology, everything that's going on in tech, I mean, really all that matters at the end of the day is the human element behind it, right? So it's our data, it's our personal data, it's our browsing data, it's our health care records, it's protecting the companies where we work, right? So that's what really matters to us most.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I love bringing mission-based entrepreneurs and executives on the show to share why they do what they do. I mean, it's important. So Dan, we'll go further into Echelon Cyber in a moment. But first off, how'd you get started as an entrepreneur and really just on this entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, sure. I guess you could always say I've had a little entrepreneurial blood in me since an early age. I grew up in Pittsburgh, which is very much a blue-collar town, and my family on both my mom and my dad's side were, both very blue-collar growing up. So I would say that instilled really a hard work ethic in me from an early age. From an early age, I was doing things like shoveling snow in the wintertime for everybody on the block, or in the summertime, visiting my grandfather in my dad's side in New York, picking up pop cans on the side of the road to turn in for 5 cents. And then, as I progressed in age, I was able to get some other, jobs over time, and things like caddying and working at the golf course and doing all the outside work at the golf course. And that's really code for cleaning people's clubs, carrying people's clubs, washing their golf carts. So I guess I mean to say that, very early on that work ethic was, woven into the fabric of who I am. We always had to, work for a living. So I think with that, growing up, I never really felt entitled to anything and knew that, if I wanted to get what I wanted out of this life, right, I really would have to work for it. So even after I completed grad school,
Yeah.
I had side hustles, right? I like to say I had side hustles before they were called side hustles, and before they were, a cool thing to have a side hustle, right? Um, for example, when I finished my MBA, I wanted to do something to put some of those skills to work to be able to pay off my school loans. Mind you, I got my MBA while I was working full time. So I got my MBA part time.
Yeah.
So while working full time, while getting my MBA full time, I started a t-shirt company, which turned out to be wildly successful. It was a lot of Pittsburgh based themes. And I ended up, getting shirts into Urban Outfitter retailers.
Wow.
Had my shirts in the back of, numerous hometown celebrities like Mac Miller. I've always had a little bit of that spirit in my blood, right? And transferring that into professional services, even at my last position where I worked at an accounting firm, I was able to create one of the largest cybersecurity practices that an accounting firm has had, right in, the Pittsburgh and Columbus area. So
wow,
it's always been kind of woven, throughout my character, I'd say.
Man, that's an interesting story. I'm like, wait a minute, Mac Miller's wearing your shirts, like a t-shirt company. You were a t-shirt company guy. I'm like, I feel like all of us are united. Like all the people out there that had the t-shirt side hustle. I did that. I didn't have a t-shirt company, but this is way when I was a kid. Like, I mean, young. I used to airbrush t-shirts, so we're going way back when, and I sold them. So now I'm like, I love when somebody tells me they sold t-shirts. I have that me too moment.
Yeah,
awesome, man. I love the hustle.
Yeah, for me, Adam, what I loved about it was during work at that time, I would say I didn't get the chance to be all that creative with what I was able to do at work. So for me, that was a really fun way for me to like express my creative side and, do something that I thought was a whole heck of a lot of fun. And, paid some bills with, that money in the meantime.
For sure. So, there's some other people watching this right now that they got hustle too. They have drive, but there's a difference between like being able to just have in a creative outlet and also making some money. So one of the key things here is that you were, MBA student, you're working, and you start a company that's successful and you make money with it. Like, and it's a passion project, I would argue. You went into it with wanting to make money, but I'm guessing you didn't probably think it was going to get as big as it did as quickly. So that being said, there's some people watching this right now that maybe they got some things they want to do. What kind of advice would you give to that person that wants that side hustle right now? Like, what's interesting?
Yeah, my advice would be you can't half-ass it. So, you really have to go at, what you want and go at it hard. If you try to just dabble in it and think you're going to spend an hour or two here or there to try to make that side hustle work, you're probably not going to get it going, right? So, I mean, I remember I spent a lot of long nights, a lot of weekend time, giving up to make that happen. Especially like when we got to the point where we were shipping shirts to Urban Outfitters, that totally changed the game. There was a whole supply chain model we had to follow and tagging the shirts and putting them in bags and folding them a certain way. So it takes real work and you have to be ready to commit to that. And that would be my advice is, go all in if you're going to do it.
Awesome. Love it. All right, let's get back to cybersecurity. You got me excited about t-shirts here, man. We got to get back to the topic, all right?
Do it. Yep.
So what are you seeing right now in cybersecurity? I mean, well, let me, I guess, tee this up a little better. So you work with, mid-sized companies, you work with large companies, you're working on lots of different cybersecurity, issues and challenges and processes. Like, what are you seeing overall going on in the cybersecurity landscape right now?
Yeah, I mean, I would say cybersecurity, it's kind of not a lot going on there right now. It's kind of slow. Not a whole heck. No, I'm totally kidding. Cybersecurity is one of those.
I already know. You're like, nothing going. I was waiting for you. I'm like, oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy in hindsight to look back, the cybersecurity industry and where it's come over the last few years. But I will say, the landscape in cyber has really shifted, has really changed. I think there's a couple of reasons for those changes and why things have been accelerating. One is the technology that we use every day, either as consumers or businesses, evolves so rapidly. I think it's hard for businesses and for consumers, frankly, to just keep up with it all, let alone secure that and stay on top of how do we secure all these new things like cloud and containers and microservices, so on and so forth, right? So just when people think they've conquered one area or learned how to secure one thing, there's these 10 other things that pop up. So that's one of the big reasons why I think cyber is changing so rapidly. But on the other side of that, and this is like pouring gasoline on the fire, is the fact that the threat actors that we face have really evolved rapidly with the technology, right? So you look at these new attack vectors today, like ransomware. A few years ago, ransomware was barely a serious thought, right? Like there would be some one-off, like, hey, this person's laptop got hit with ransomware and they paid $300. Like, okay, not a big deal. So there was a little bit of that, 3, 4, or 5 years ago. Now, today, ransomware software is so easy to procure. It's called ransomware as a service now. Wow. So, a budding entrepreneur, and I do not recommend trying this at home, but a budding ransomware entrepreneur could go out and purchase all the tools they need and stage those and get ready to start executing their own ransomware attacks in under a day.
Oh my gosh.
And so all of a sudden, the landscape has completely changed. In the past, it used to be financial institutions, healthcare companies, and a few other industries really were the ones that cared about cyber. They really took a hard look and made investments because they had the data that hackers wanted to steal, right? Yeah. Now, the whole game has changed. Those hackers are still out there. They still want to steal that data. They still want to grab that data, right? But everybody else now has to worry about things like ransomware.
Yeah.
So you've got these companies like manufacturers or government entities or not-for-profits. The list goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
Organizations that traditionally have not made big investments in cybersecurity or have had to pay attention, all of a sudden need to pay extreme attention.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they're trying to catch up, over the last 20 years of really malnutrition in the cyberspace and not enough care and feeding. So you got all these industries playing catch up. You have these brand new threat actors that are looking at this like a feeding frenzy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They're just going to town on these industries that are highly vulnerable. Yeah. That is my take on sort of, the 50,000 foot view of what's going on in the industry today.
Yeah, and we'll dig deeper here, but to preface that, though, I do want to go further into Echelon Cyber. So, because I want to talk about some specific ways that business owners should be thinking about cyber, like tools, things like that. So I definitely want to give some resources. And at the end of this, of course, I'll give you the opportunity to leave information for Echelon Cyber. So if somebody wants to follow up, they can. But let's just start with the company itself. So tell us a little bit more about the company itself.
Yeah. So, the kind of origin story is I worked in IT for a while. Turned out my IT knowledge and IT experience was very valuable in the consulting world, specifically in financial services. So being in Pittsburgh, I worked at U.S. Steel for a while. U.S. Steel had mainframe technology. Well, guess who else used the mainframe technology? Banks. So a lot of that experience, for me, shifted me into the consulting world. So early on in my career, I got into consulting and I worked for accounting firms. Most recently, I spent over 10 years at a regional public accounting firm where I did a lot of IT risk work and compliance work. I would say one of the things that didn't sit well with me sometimes in the work that I did was, we would do a lot of these exercises for compliance and risk mitigation and in some cases some box checking, right? And I knew at the end of the day, even after we did all of this work, that these companies would still be vulnerable to modern day type of hacking techniques and attacks. So I felt like we were doing all of this work and like the value proposition was there, but it wasn't tremendous, right?
Got it.
So I didn't feel like we were making a huge difference. Yes, we were helping companies meet their compliance requirements, which is, base level, like, yes, they need to do that.
Right.
But I love to say, like, hey, while we have the hood up to do compliance work and, we're changing the oil, changing the air filters, like, let's give the engine a true tune-up while we're in there, right? Like, let's do some things that are value add, some things that really move the needle on what's possible, right? So that's where I got into starting, value added cybersecurity services within my old firm and creating a brand new organization and department within my old firm specific to these value added types of services. So for me, that was really a big turning point in my career because I saw how valuable those were, those services were, and how much our clients needed them and how much our clients wanted those types of services, right?
Yeah.
So that was a huge turning point, I think, for me. And getting into Echelon and starting Echelon, for me, that was a perfect opportunity, right? I get the chance to create a brand new firm that is mission driven, that is looking to be value add, that is looking to be connected to the community and to our clients in a way that, I truly love. So for me, I really wanted that opportunity to get to build something with a purpose from the ground up. The landscape I talked about before in cybersecurity, the landscape of service providers talks a lot about what they do and they hammer what they do, but no one really talks about why they do it, right?
Yeah.
And we felt like if we focused on that mission, we'd be very successful at recruiting the right types of people that we want in our organization. If we recruit those right types of individuals within our organization, those are going to be exactly the types of people that our clients want to work with, right? So that was extremely exciting and invigorating for me because I knew that model was going to be very successful, and it has been so far.
So the logo, the name, I mean, how'd you choose that? Like, I think there's a story back there.
Oh, man. Yeah. So working on choosing a name, that is like, I feel like one of the toughest things ever, right? A lot of late nights, pouring myself a drink, sitting around in silence with my thoughts and thinking of what do I want this company to be, right? What is the meaning behind what we're trying to do? And the name is supposed to embody that, right? I could have slapped, Desko Partners LLC on a shingle and not thought twice about it and, went about my business. But I knew that wouldn't have any meaning other than to me and maybe my parents, right? So I really wanted a name that that would resonate with our employees and with our clients in the marketplace. So the way that I explain Echelon is that the Echelon formation is a old military formation. It is a formation that has probably been used for hundreds or probably thousands of years, really.
Yeah.
So it's a formation where it creates a staggered front. So if you see our logo, it's kind of staggered like this, right? So that Echelon formation creates that staggered front, and that staggered front has a lot of meaning to it. It gives you a much wider, field of vision on, the battlefield, right? It also gives you much more protection. So I was like, man, that really makes a lot of sense for what we're trying to do, right? Like, I didn't want the name to be very overtly militaristic and sound like, like death metal hardcore kind of, you know, kind of name. But Echelon sounded to me like, hey, it sounds strategic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not too hardcore, has a ton of meaning behind what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, it just felt right. And every time I challenged it or came up with other ideas or circulated the ideas with people, my circles, we always kept gravitating back to Echelon. And it just felt right. Sorry.
So I want to go further into, thank you for sharing that. So I want to go further into really, again, business owners are watching this right now, people that do, IT, procurement, other things like that. They decide what companies they want to work with. Like and things are changing fast. One of the things that you've highlighted multiple times in this interview so far is that like things are moving fast. Cybersecurity is moving fast. Threats are moving fast, like just different ways that people can come, can potentially blindside you on something that you were not prepared for is what it comes down to. Devices are changing, like it's all changing and it's going fast. Like what are some, I don't expect, of course, on a 30-minute podcast interview to solve everybody's problems, but we get that that's not going to happen. But like, how should people be thinking about this? Like if you're somebody that's sitting back, I'll throw out a random example for you. Somebody sitting back, maybe you have a couple million in revenue. You're sitting back and you're thinking, we haven't looked at this in a while. We haven't thought about like any of the things they're talking about. We have revenue. We have lots of systems. We probably added some systems that maybe top level management isn't quite aware of what they are altogether. As the businesses grow, certain things might get away from you slightly. But they want to revisit like the structure and everything. Like, where do they start? Like, where does someone start thinking about this from?
Yeah, I would say, if you're a small business, just sitting back and saying, hey, where do I need to focus? And I don't have a ton of budget or a ton of money to focus on that. I would say, think about the basics, right? And go back to some of the basics in information security and cybersecurity. There are a lot of simple things that you could do that will make your organization, I'll call it, not so much of a opportunistic target, right? Yeah. Small businesses, medium-sized businesses, they're more targets for opportunistic types of attacks. The large scale, what we call sort of the hackers spray and they pray.
Yeah.
So they'll send out mass phishing campaigns, mass spam, mass types of attacks.
Sure.
And they'll see who falls for it, what comes back, and then dig into what might be a juicy target. So with that, I would say start to focus on the basics that make you less of an opportunistic attack. Do things like, okay, your passwords that you use for your company, make sure that they're not the same passwords that you used in MySpace back in 2008. Because MySpace was hacked. And if you use that same password today for your company, there's this thing called password reuse where hackers have that database of billions of previously exposed passwords. And they have tools that are automatically trying those passwords all over the place. So don't reuse your passwords. Actually ditch the idea of passwords altogether and use what I like to call a passphrase. So put 3 or 4 words together that only have meaning to you. And that length makes it exponentially harder for hackers to try to guess or crack those types of passwords. And then it's all about thinking about how you do business, what applications you use, how you use them, and thinking about how someone might get into them and take advantage of them. So do you have 2-factor authentication set up, for simple things that you use in your everyday life? Like I always recommend, hey, start in your personal life. Start by putting 2FA on your Facebook, on your Twitter, on your Instagram, on your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And then if you do that, if you follow those things in your personal life, that should just, I'll say automatically or ultimately carry over into your work life as well.
And so let's say that, okay, so that's for the small business. Let's work our way up a little bit. So let's say that, now we're talking to that mid-tier business. So there is, there's more budget, it's more complex. They have more to risk and more, obviously more to lose there. So they have to be more aware of the cybersecurity threats. There's more at risk. What should they be thinking about in today's cybersecurity space?
What's funny is, I've worked for and done consulting for businesses of all
Mm,
size. And I've done a lot of work in the financial services space,
mm,
everything from, a one branch bank that
yeah.
is in the middle of the countryside, all the way through some of your, biggest banks, multinational institutions in the world.
Hmm.
And the funny thing is, they all have the same problems.
Interesting.
It's just different size and scale. So, when we talk about password reuse, right? Well,
Hmm.
if you're at the small bank, right, you have a very small set of users. So it's maybe a little bit easier to manage.
Yeah.
The problems just get exponentially bigger when you are at a mid-tier institution or a very large institution. A lot of the same principles, axioms still
Hmm.
apply, but where the additional risk comes in is the digital footprint of these organizations is much larger.
Yeah.
So it becomes more challenging in managing it. And to manage it successfully at that scale, you need a
Hmm.
lot of organization, and you really need people who think of cybersecurity as a strategic enabler for the business
Hmm.
and not just sort of like a one-time check the box and it's over, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I would say as you get into the mid-tier to larger
Hmm.
businesses, you really need to look at cybersecurity as a strategic enabler, something that is deserving of a regular voice within the organization,
Hmm.
and something that needs to be thought of in business strategy and business operations, uh, that requires constant care, organization, and feeding. So to me, I could spout off a whole laundry list of controls, but
Hmm.
the truth of the matter is those apply no matter what. It's just a matter of size, scale, and organization.
So Dan, that was great. I mean, give me an example. Like, give me an example of what it's like to work with Echelon Cyber.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Adam. I would say a recent example that was really good, and we just got client feedback on it, so much so that they said they would happily do a case study for us, which I was blown away
That's awesome.
because I mean, that rarely happens, right? Usually I have to pull teeth, ask clients, like, hey, can you please do a case study with us? They actually said at the end of our closing call with them, like, this was a fantastic experience. We'll do a case study. What we did, we helped an organization with a penetration testing engagement. And
Mhm.
their goal was to really get a sense for how their defenses, all the new things that they've been working on, would really stand up to an attack. But they didn't want us to do it in a black box, right? They wanted to be informed along the way. They wanted to have a sense for what we were doing and how we were doing it.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we like to do is we like to ask our customers, like, hey, we could send somebody on site to do this testing,
Mhm.
and you could literally sit there in the room with them, and we'll put our laptop up on the big screen. We could show you the tools that we're running, why we're running them, and exactly what they're doing and how we're taking advantage of, either misconfigurations or vulnerabilities in your systems live, right? So that way, our customers not only get that report at the end,
Mhm.
but they're getting the real live, up to the minute sort of input on exactly how a threat actor would take advantage of
Mhm.
some of the things that they might not have thought of. And that has really resonated well. I think so much in this industry, it's like this black box. Like, people get hired to do these engagements, they go off and do them, and then you don't hear from them until the end of the thing, and they slap a report down on your
Mhm.
desk, and it's like, see you later, right? We want to turn all that on its head. We want to open it up and show our clients, in the
Mhm.
spirit of raising their capabilities, just what we do and how we do it. And at the end of this engagement, they said that they learned so much, not only about the types of tools we used, but
Mhm.
just exactly why we picked those things that we did, and in the tactics, techniques, procedures we pulled out of our bag, right? So that approach has been wildly successful for us. Our clients love it. Our employees love it because they're seeing the difference that it makes.
Mhm.
Talk about making a difference in a client's life, right? And being able to, like, really help them see those aha moments. I mean, it's a really rewarding and fulfilling thing to do. So it's been paying dividends for us.
Man, that's awesome. When somebody engages Echelon Cyber, like what does that look like? Whether it's for any of those, like does it start with an assessment? Does it start with give us a feel for that part of it?
Yeah, so we have this assess, comply, build mentality where we essentially start by taking that hard look at what the client's currently doing, like do that initial assessment, help them, comply and get over the bar of those compliance hurdles, and then really help them bolt on and build on from there, right? And then we iterate. We do it again and again and again. It's really that iterative approach where we try to take things from compliance and like I mentioned earlier, doing the basics to really over the long term building up our clients' capabilities.
And it sounds to me like you can really work with people where they're at. So meaning you can serve as that executive function if they don't have that person or that team in place, or if they do, but they need some other things, like maybe they don't have the stress testing part of it, the offense side, or maybe they want to get the audit side done, or maybe you can work with their existing teams and infrastructure too. So it seems to me like you can really cover it kind of across the board. Am I right on that?
Yeah, you're totally right. At the end of the day, we help our clients fill capabilities that they don't have in-house. And these are capabilities that they probably don't need full-time and they need on a discrete basis. But what drives us is we want to raise our clients' capabilities too over time. Okay. So back in line to our mission of making sure that, believing that security and privacy are basic human rights. Well, our clients are also there to protect those same rights. And if we could help raise their capabilities up, we want to teach them where to fish where possible and give them the tools to do so, right? In some ways, we almost try to, work ourselves out of business over time. It's one of those things where, if our clients build up their capabilities and in 5 years they no longer need us for that certain thing, well, that's fine. That means we've done our job.
It's awesome. So Dan, I mean, first off, this has been great. So I have to ask, so what's next for you? What's next for Echelon Cyber? What's next?
Yeah, I think so much is next, right? It's just a matter of trying to manage what is next and what should be next. So I think, the sky is the limit as far as what we are capable of doing. We have such a talented team right now, and we continue to add talented new team members. So for us, I would say what's next is just explosive growth and trying to manage that appropriately, making sure that, we're still able to satisfy our current client needs successfully, while still giving people on our team the ability to do the good work that they love to do. Right. And we take a lot of pride in giving cybersecurity professionals opportunities that they may have never had before too. Right. So we're going to continue to look for people in our cyber communities that, might be a little bored with their job, with their day job. They might not be getting the chance to grow professionally. We want to be that space for those types of professionals in the marketplace, where they look at Echelon as, hey, you know what? I could really go to Echelon and help do some pretty cool work there, work that is, meaningful and helps make a difference within our communities and at our clients.
Fantastic. Well, Dan, been great having you on the show. If somebody's watching this right now and they want to learn more about Echelon Cyber, what's the best way for them to follow up and to connect with you and your team?
Yeah, I would say definitely please follow me on LinkedIn. Go to LinkedIn, search for Dan Desko, connect with me, follow me. I'm regularly posting sort of up to the minute, cutting edge information on what's going on in the cyber world quite regularly. And then on top of that, you could visit our website at echeloncyber.com. And at the top along the navigation bar, click on intelligence. There, you will have the ability to sign up for our weekly blog, Cyber Intelligence Weekly, where I am curating the world's top cyber news and send it directly to you in your mailbox Monday morning. So I would say those are the best ways to connect with us on a regular basis.
Awesome. Well, Dan, again, Awesome having you on the show today and learning more about your background, how you got started on this journey as an entrepreneur, but also your mission behind Echelon Cyber and why you do what you do and how you're helping your clients. I think it's a great story. I'm glad to bring it to my audience. And everybody watching, by the way, if this is your first time watching, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Have many more mission-based entrepreneurs, executives, and experts coming on. And we definitely want you to not miss a thing. So hit that subscribe button so you can catch all the upcoming episodes. And Dan, it has been a pleasure again. Excellent connecting and wishing you and Echelon Security much more continued success. So thank you.
Yeah, Adam, pleasure was all mine. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.